welcome everybody. I'm sure there'll be more people arriving as we kind of do our introduction. And Tor, I'll pass it over to you to introduce Isabel and Jean.
Yeah, I mean, I have met many consultants over the years, but this is a very special couple, I would say. I've never seen them apart any time, so they're always coming as a couple. And to me, it warms my heart to be able to welcome you to share your stories. You have some amazing work that you have done. We are both, Phil and I, are very much looking forward to hear what you have to tell us. And I think that when it comes to presenting you as a company and your organization, that is coming at the end of the presentation as well. But and I think that you will share the story of framing that very well by yourself in the beginning of this presentation. Just so the participants know, then the normal procedure is that you write in your questions as the presentation goes. Isabel and Jean will present, and we will not try to interfere or disturb you during the presentation. So write in your questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah, there are two boxes. There's a Q&A box where you write your questions, and there's also a chat box. So if you just want to chat and connect with each other or send a message to us, use the chat box. But please put all the questions in the Q&A area, because that means it's easier for us to curate those as the meeting goes on.
And the presentation will be around 35 to 40 minutes, and then we have about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for Q&As, when we will read out your questions as has been written. If we don't have time for all questions that comes in, we will then come back in a written format regarding those questions. And in order to make this more efficient as well, we are not inviting everyone to speak. We will be the speakers, Phil and I, of the voice of the participants. By that, I can't wait any longer to take part of your story, so I leave the floor to you, Isabel and Jean, and we then disappear from our screen, and you can share your screen, and then anything else, Phil, that you feel is important?
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tor and Phil, for this beautiful opportunity to share our story and our journey in Russia. So Jean and I, we will share our story, what we have gone through, our key learnings, and the theme of today is nurturing culture through rapid growth in Russia. And what is important before we start is that this company moved from 7,500 employees in end of 2012 to more than 35,000 today. And that's only in 6 years. So this is a massive growth. And for us, it was a unique opportunity as well to work in this environment. And the company culture had a nickname when we started our mission, which is MGMK. And MGMK are the keywords for Moja Жизнь, Moja Компания, my life, my company. And this culture nickname was born in 2013, and it became really the driving wave of the cultural evolution of Leroy Merlin in Russia. And everybody soon, very quickly, started talking about MGMK, Moja Жизнь, Moja Компания. And it really generated enthusiasm, trust, and a sense of belonging. And we will explain how this happened. But I will give the floor to Jean to explain the menu of today.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I will not take too much of the floor, but we have made some concession to being emphatic and organized. We will go through 5 steps in the sharing of information we do today. The purpose of the project, that of course is quite important. The context in which the project happened, and both the business context and the context in Russia. How did things happen? How did things evolve over time? And a couple of learnings we would like to insist on. which were very important to us. I mean, that's an experience that we've gone through, and we would like to share that, so that could generate more ideas.
The purpose, Jean? What was the purpose of Vincent?
Vincent wanted to be that his company, Leroy Merlin in Russia, would become the most empowering and inspiring company in Russia. And that means a lot. So when we met initially, that was end of 2012, Vincent was looking around and wanted to have some accompaniment on embarking on the project. He started a conversation by saying, I don't like consultants. I don't like these consultants wearing ties, telling me what I have to do. I want to move this company, not with the brain, but with the heart. So when we went back to Vincent with the proposal to start putting the wheels in motion, we said that we will commit ourselves not to wear ties and not to tell him what to do. So that was a good start. Before we move on, Leroy Merlin is part of the ADEO group. They serve more than 1 million clients worldwide. And they are amongst the leading DIY companies worldwide. They have almost 1,500 stores. They are running, motivating, mobilizing 112,000 team members over 15 countries. So we're talking about a big block. And interestingly, they have initiated a work at group level, and they decided that their company mission, their group mission, is to be useful to inhabitants surrounding them, which is quite a nice starting point.
Thank you.
Let me, sorry.
That is okay.
Wrong button. And all that happened in a context that is very special. And would you like to say a few words about the context?
Yes. Actually, what is very important to share is that, you know, we worked in a Russian context, and I like to put the 007 in the slide, because 007 is the international dialing code of Russia. And for me is a good metaphor to explain this complex business environment in order to be able to make the difference between the real, the imaginary, and the likely. Because Russia generates a lot of stereotypes, a lot of images around the world. A lot of them are not true. And what is important to understand, I would like to give 4 key messages about this context. Russia is going through what we call the 3D challenges. The 3D, the first D is for demography. You know that experts are planning a decrease of the population of about 14 million people in the next 50 years, which is massive. They do not have enough babies to renew the population, and this is a critical moment in Russia. Population is about 142 million. And of course, people, you know, living in Leroy Merlin, that they do live in this context. The third challenge, the second D is defense. You know, a lot of people say that sometimes we can be a bit paranoid about Russia or what they do, but they do have 14 borders in the world, which is the country in the world with the most with the biggest number of borders to protect. And the democracy challenge, the third D, it is a democracy by the book, but in reality, yes, people do assimilate Russia more with some kind of sometimes driver of dictatorship. And what is important as well is to have in mind and keep in mind that the Russian population, together with all the employees of Leroy Merlin, They have endured high inflation the past decades, and it has a direct impact on purchasing power. And they have survived 3 major economic crises. So this is the situation where we started, and this is the life of people with whom we worked during these 6 years.
And these guys know about resilience.
Yes, and they have a fantastic capacity to develop resilience as human beings, and they always find new ways to survive and to go on. But Jean, can you share how did we work and what happened?
There'll be many things to say about that. So I decided to focus on one key element, one building block that we believe was key to the ability to move forward and to embark the whole team. And that is not to come with preconceived ideas. We've used really the meaning of camino caminando. There is no road in place. It's our walking that makes the road. And that really means that all the people who were part of the project embarked on it, they integrated themselves and mobilized themselves. They were not confronted with imposed ideas. They were embarked by their own ideas emerging from the journey that we were doing together. What was really important is that, and that's why we decided to put the word co-authoring. It was not imposed from the top. Everybody in the company, from the CEO down to the logistics, everybody participated into the formulation of what was important to them and the direction they wanted to take. That allowed everybody in the company to move into recognizing, accepting and sharing their own emotions. That is not always easy. And there are some levels in the hierarchy where showing out and working with emotions is not obvious. What we did as well was involving the teams, all the teams inside the company. We did not bring an army of 50 consultants or more. We were actually the 2 outsiders. And we recognize the fact that being external is a key tool, is a key success factor. That's essential. But what we did was to mobilize teams inside the organization that became ambassadors, that were really within the project, within the thought, within the thinking, and who cascaded down the work that was done by themselves while we were accompanying them. That was quite a key success factor.
So for that, how did we do it? We usually present our methodologies in three steps. The first one is choosing the words. You know, what is important for us in our life? What do I observe when I go to work every day? What is the experience I have? How do I feel? What would be great for the future? And choosing the words for us is we use the cultural value assessment, and we have run 3 CVAs in 6 years, and we will show you how we managed to transform the culture. The second step is meaning of the words. We had more than 10,000 collaborators participating in what we call e-dialogue, and I'll tell you a bit more afterwards about that. And here it's about finding the common definition of what is recognition for us, or what is working as a team, what do we do, what does it mean, how do we recognize it. And this is to have the same dictionary, because recognition for me can mean something, but for you it can mean something else. And then the third part is living the words. And here is, walk the talk. What do we concretely do to be in line with our values, with our culture, with what we want to do in the world? And for that, we had 100% of the collaborators who attended what we call Phygital Workshops in 6 years. And Phygital is a combination of physicality and virtuality, because if we want to embark a large number of people, we need to have a bit of both. So few words about our tools. So choosing the words, the first CVA we ran, we focused on personal values of people and desired culture. And then we identified the theme. We did e-dialogue session. What does it mean for you? In order to really decipher the shared meaning of the values. And then we had workshops, living the words. Guys, what do we concretely do to make it happen? What should we stop doing that we do wrong? And this enabled us to transform and to contribute to a real and fantastic evolution of the culture. So in 2013, yes, you wanted to say something.
Just a thought that was going. These workshops involved everybody in the organization. That's, don't know if I'm saying that at the right time, but one of the objectives of Vincent was that everybody, every single collaborator would attend the workshops. And he caught us actually by surprise, because we were into evaluating how many people should participate and would participate to add value. And he came to that working meeting and said, look, that's the wrong question. Everybody will attend. So that was a bit of a surprise, and I just wanted to share that when you were talking about living the words.
Yes, and actually it was possible because in our methodology we give tools to people so they can take ownership of a project, and it has been possible because we had today there are about 300 to 400 ambassadors in Russia working on that project still today. So what happened for the first CVA? In 2013, it was really waking up. It was really, guys, we are calling for more recognition. We want to become a more human organization. And the results of the first cultural assessment revealed a very big need for recognition, professional development, being better at what we do. And what was really interesting is in 2013, the client was not among the top 20 values. So people were just not connecting to the client. And here for Vincent, that was a massive surprise, because he was like, in the top 10 values, in what people cherish, the client is not there. And Vincent decided something which I believe is very courageous. He had a meeting with the executive committee, and he said, look, the client is not among the top 20 values, so we will not focus on the client for the time being, because we have to address basics. And he said, we will not put customer satisfaction in our top values. And that was very courageous from his side and challenging as well. And what happened is we worked on some themes. To give you an example, recognition. They were really calling for recognition. Recognition for them, when we said, what does it mean to you, recognition? How do you see recognition? They said, look, the first thing you have to do when I come to work in the morning or in the afternoon, when I do something good, can you say just thank you to me? So recognition for them was, can you say thank you? Well-being and development, health as well was among the top values, and they said, look, we are freezing in the stores in winter. Can we have some heating system that do work? And for health as well, I'll give you another example. look, can we change the meals at the cantina because it's really not good, it's not tasty, it's not healthy, and can we have the possibility to do some sports as well, you know, to keep fit. So actually during a few years the company really focused on addressing all these key issues, and they managed to build really strong and very solid foundation to further develop. And during that time we had a lot of workshops, sharing a lot of ideas, and it was a big tempo, and Vincent was very supportive of that tempo as well, which is part of the success, of course, of this mission. So Jean, can you tell us, because you know we need to measure success as well sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Can you share some key figures, Jean?
We didn't start from the numbers. We didn't work around the numbers, but we checked the numbers to see where the whole project was leading us. For the sake of this presentation, we've identified just 4 indicators. Employee satisfaction in 5 to 6 years moved from 61% to 82%. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. What I'm saying is there's a progression which is significant. It's massive. We don't need to be very accurate, but we know there's a massive measure that showed that employee satisfaction was increasing a lot. Engagement goes together with that, obviously. Engagement moved from 57% to 78%.
Taking into consideration that a lot of newcomers, from 7,500 to 35,000 people today.
And that is massive. You know, when a company grows at a usual rate, at a slow pace, what happens is that there's a sort of informal exchange of values, important things, how to do things, how to behave, and that goes naturally. But when you move, when the growth is that fast, the old guys that could transmit the historical values, then not enough any longer. So there was a need to formalize that system. Employee turnover dropped from 22%, which in Moscow, which in Russia was already low, down to 18%. So it really keeps. And then client satisfaction measured by Kantar TNS. Client satisfaction moved from 5,300 to 6,900.
Surprisingly, because client was not the focus
exactly.
of the culture.
That's a massive lesson. And we don't go, as you know, with preconceived ideas. We just do the work as we've explained, and then we observe what's the impact. That required a lot of trust from the client as well, because we told him sometimes we don't know. We don't know where you get. We'll see, and we'll take it from what we see. They were really rewarded by the fact that they've been nominated in Russia Best Employer 2 years in a row, 2016 and 2017. The brand image and the attractivity as an employer, that was really important. They had to recruit up to 1,000 employees per month. So they had to be attractive. They had to be perceived as being very attractive. And when they do some survey and they ask people, why would you like to work with us? They said that's because of your company culture. So that was really rewarding and reassuring for the client and for us that we were doing things and they had an impact on key business measures.
So
yeah,
now
move on.
Jean has given you some data, and now it's important, and this is a very important moment of the presentation for us. I'll just introduce as Cheburashka. Cheburashka was the talking stick of all the teams at the beginning of the mission in 2013. And so she's been part of most all the seminars, and she became the symbol of MGMK, My Agis, My Accompagna. And what happened during this transformation and evolution, Vincent decided that maybe it was time to share profit with his collaborators, and in order to improve, their life condition, to give them more recognition, and to contribute to their future. And the ADEO group has a program in France enabling collaborators to become shareholder of the company. And Vincent said, why not in Russia? And actually, that was a very important moment in the history of the company. In 2015, Vincent decided to launch the project, Become Shareholders. And this is unique in Russia, to have a company giving the possibility to all the women and men who are working every day there to become part of the scope and to become shareholders and partners for the long term. And I remember Vincent was saying, look, my biggest worry is not to convince the executive committee of ADEO Group, is to convince my collaborators, because due to historical reason, sharing profit and sharing capital in Russia was not really famous, and people are very often extremely skeptical. And in 2019, they have more than 20,000 collaborators who actually joined the project and who became shareholders. So now in 2019, we measured the evolution of the culture, and it was a CVA. Jean, what happened?
Yeah, going back to observing what has happened, you remember Isabel told us that when we did the first CVA, the company demonstrated that it was really turned inward, that the client as a concept was not appearing. 3 years later, was it 3 years? Yeah, it must be.
6.
Was it 6 years later? So, yeah, not good at numbers. Through that development of MJMK, there's been a shift, a massive shift that could appear in the third CVA that was done, where the organization moved from a self-centered business towards opening to the world, opening to the ecosystems, willing to make a difference, including integrating the clients in the perimeter. They put actually the human beings around them in the center of the picture. They were calling them inhabitants. They were calling them neighbors more than they were calling them clients. They wanted to be useful. That was quite an interesting concept that came out of the work, that emerged from the work of the teams. They said, we want to be useful to ourselves. That's interesting, isn't it? They start trying to be useful to themselves. They want to be useful to the others, and they want to be useful to the world. Do you know, by any chance, that the Russian forest is the second biggest forest in the world after the Amazon? They wanted to be useful. They wanted to work in communities between themselves and together with the neighbors. They were happy to serve. I mean, just the idea of being happy at work was fantastic, and they were happy to serve. They still needed to keep an eye and caring about well-being, and they wanted to move forward. So it's not like that they wanted to keep the situation as it is. They just wanted to move forward, which came as a very encouraging moment. I mean, frankly speaking, that was emotional.
It was.
We didn't tell them, that lots of us could have written that down in a closed room between some colleagues, but here it really came out of the teams, the people, the collaborators?
What is important, actually, what happened, what we have been able to measure with this CVA in 2019 is really a big opening to the ecosystem around them. And when we had the result of the CVA, the working team was really like, wow, the transformation is great. And for them, it was a fantastic news because they really shifted from a self-centered to a culture open to the world. And when came the part of formulating the values, what name we will give to that, they identified 5 values, which was be useful, and they decided to use hashtag, so hashtag we are connected, work in communities, hashtag all together, happy to serve, hashtag happy client, which if you go back to 2013, we were far from that, care about well-being, and here they decided to put hashtag keeping my balance. It's not, waiting for the company to look after your health and your balance, but I'm part of it as well. And hashtag move forward is changing with meaning, so a high level of resilience. And I remember when we did e-dialogue session, one of the key topics from a societal point of view was Zashiti nas les, please, is can we protect our forest? And actually the forest, Jean mentioned that, became a big project of Leroy Merlin in Russia. And they are initiating a lot of different projects to protect the forest in the country. So now, what about the future? Now things have changed, and the situation today and the future of MGMK is actually, now they chose an elephant, and that's the new talking stick of Leroy Merlin in Russia, because they believe that they developed wisdom and they can really contribute to make the world a different place. And actually, the key thing now is there is a very high level of trust within the organization. And the future of MGMK, the theme is to give the possibility to all the employees to be leaders. Now, Leroy Merlin, they do not say we have 35,000 employees. They say we have 35,000 leaders who actually contribute to turn the organization into a learning organization. And for that, they are initiating a lot of projects to become a learning organization, to share experiences, to share best practices. And they do that together with virtual platform and physically as well. They keep this phygitality so they can embark everyone in the process. And they are actually currently, we are finalizing a leadership development program, which is available for everyone. I can develop my leadership skill as a cashier, a consultant. I can develop my leadership skill as a logistic person or as a CEO, and they will all use the same methodology. So now it's a company with 35,000 leaders wanting to make a difference in the world. So Jean, there was a great journey, and what did we learn, and what was the consequences for the team, for Vincent?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to identify one or two learnings, because there's so many learnings that we've gone through. One thing that is really important, how do I move to the, yeah, thank you, is it's really concentrating on being where we are. We want to contribute to transform humanity. We want to co-create a promising future for the next generation. that is so massive. How do I do that? I do it slice by slice, bit by bit, small, small element by small element, physical element, timing element. What will I do for the next 15 minutes? I can always go one step further. Yes, but what about in 10 years from now? I don't know. Let's go one step at a time, co-creating, camino caminando. That is really important. Be in the here and now.
And
I wanted to add something on what we've learned.
yeah,
Thank you. It's really the power of asking rather than telling. That is so obvious and it's so important. We've learned that the answer is inside us as collaborators within the organization. We have the answer. We are the answer. And that, I believe, is a learning. That what is one of the key elements that made it successful, is that the teams we work with became conscious that they were the answer to their own questions. You wanted to add something with this?
yes. What I would like to share with you is that we had feedback from the team. Because a lot of people have been involved in that project, and they told us, they said, you know, when we started that mission, we had no idea where we were going, and sometimes it was difficult for us because Camino Caminando for them was a big challenge, because they wanted, you know, I want to know what's next, what do we do after, and how do we do it. And actually they learned a lot from that, that they had to let go and just be in the here and the now, but it was challenging for a lot of them. The other thing as well is that the fact that for our key learning is the power of ask rather than tell. The organization today has developed a capacity to behave as a coach. A lot of people actually do ask questions much more than what they used to do 6 years ago, and they can be challenging, and a lot of people integrated that way of working as well, is ask rather than tell people what to do. From a human point of view, we had big moments of emotions, because sometimes, you know, we realize that even recognition could be really, you know, with a small detail you can make such a big difference, like saying thank you, with giving the possibility to people to exercise and to have a bit of sport in the stalls made a big difference. And it's not about big picture sometimes, you know, it's just small things can really make a massive difference. And for me that was a big takeaway. And, you know, back to basics and try to contribute to make people happier, because we spend quite a lot of time at work at the end of the day. And that was for me a big lesson. And the last one, which is something that actually today became part of my DNA, is really to give the tools to the team, so they can take ownership and do it by themselves, and stay out and just, you know, be kind of do some supervision, but help them to grow, to develop, and to learn a lot of things. And a lot of people, we had a workshop in June, and they said to us, wow, I mean, you know, in 6 years I changed drastically. And now, you know, I did a lot of personal development, and I'm another person. I have clear idea. I know what I want in life, and I know what I want, what is my contribution to the world. And for me, that was a big gift, big gift. So, Jean,
That's
is
what
there?
we wanted to say. Oh,
yeah?
I could stay here
You
for
could
another
stay.
hour and more. I think that's basically a condensed version of what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for having listened to all that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting and inspiring story. I think that has not been mentioned, but all these slides would also be shared. And at the end, if you click to your next 2 slides, there will also be, if you would like to have a further conversation with John and Isabel.
That's not us. That's a representation.
Yeah, exactly. But that's supposed to be you, I think, and your contact details. So that is a possibility for those who would like to continue. But we do have quite a lot of questions, and I think that we also have good time. So thank you for being so prompt in your timing with the presentation as well. So
Thank you.
I don't know, Phil,
Isabel, could you stop sharing your screen now that we can come on to full video, and then of course we'll share the slides afterwards. Should we jump straight in with the questions?
Yeah, and I think we take them as they have emerged. We have at the moment 9 questions, and do you have another way?
No, that's great. Okay, so let's jump in. From Tom Rausch. Hi, Tom. What tools were used to capture the output of the e-dialogues? I am wondering how you sifted, sorted, and consolidated the meaning of the values from the e-dialogues.
Okay. Do you want to go for that question, John?
Okay.
Okay. He's the engineer, so...
It's not that complex. The e-dialogue is based on a platform. The platform is a screen that provides remote access to a server. A facilitator is true. It's live. It is some sort of meeting that lasts for about 1 hour, 1 hour, 10 minutes. The facilitator is showing on the screen a statement or a question, and participants have the ability to answer the questions, to share a point of view, to share a feeling or whatever. When that is done, it appears on the screen. When it appears on the screen of the participants, they have one obligation, and that is to score each individual statement, saying, I fully agree with them, I fully disagree with them, I don't care, whatever. There's a scale and a little cursor. And when the statement has been scored, the screen then clears space and leaves the other statements coming in. When we are 500, 800, 1,000 participants, it's not possible to react on every individual statement. So the system is, the platform is designed in such a way that it starts from separate tables, virtual tables obviously, and only the statements that reach the top from they fully agree or fully disagree will then move to the surrounding tables and progressively move throughout the whole population and become a strongly supported statement. So then, when the hour and 10 minutes is finished and we close the conversation, then there's an output that goes on an Excel spreadsheet. Could be 15,000 lines. It's massive work. But the statistics of support, high support, top support, or lower scale, or etc., allows sorting and identifying the most important opinions that come out of the exercise. Did I forget something?
No. And just after that, I mean, it's important to understand that these are live sessions. We prepare some questions, but we can we can feel the energy of the virtual group. And the beauty of that is at the end, we use the words people use, we stick to their vocabulary. So then when you make the presentation of the values, people recognize what they've said is their words. And we use the verbatim to formulate what do I do when I recognize, why is it important recognition, and we use exactly what they say.
It's not polished.
Without any interpretation or whatever.
Sure. I've got an additional question from Yogita, which I think is connected to this. How did you find out what, for example, health means to employees? What did you do after they conducted the CVA, and you mentioned the conversation with the CEO. What about the employees, and what kind of sessions and workshops do you have to involve the employees?
So the way we do that, because the health, caring about health was very important for the employees. We asked very simple way, is like, what do we do well today that we should keep on doing? What do we do wrong that we should stop tomorrow morning, starting from 8 in the morning? What do we do well that we should do more? What have we never done that could be really good? And what would be absolutely fantastic? So it's a 5-step processes, and it enables us to work on the low-hanging fruit, because we can implement straight away very quick project, and we have as well long-term project. So taking into consideration the health issue, people were freezing, basically freezing during winter in some stores or in warehouses. They initiated a project within 2 months. First was to give jumpers to start, with basics, and then they repaired the air conditioning system in a lot of stores. They created resting rooms. They started to give, for example, hot soup in warehouses during the night, and that's how it starts. And it creates a big wave of recognition when you do that,
Yeah. And I think that's a very good answer. I'm going through the list of the 10 questions that we have, and Elisabeth Norseng is actually saying something that is touching upon this. And how were the concrete ideas and changing for food in the restaurants, improving the heat in stores, providing opportunity for sport development? How were their concrete ideas changing the food? Okay. In other words, how did you take the company from the CVA to nominating such ideas and implementation? I think that's what you're answering now. If I
That's correct, and it goes back to the discipline of asking rather than telling.
Exactly.
If health came out of the CVA as a top value, we didn't decide what health meant.
No.
We reported to everybody that this came out. There was a big internal communication effort that was taken on board. And then we went back to them and say, when we're talking about health, which is important to you, what does it mean? And it did mean different things in different places in the country. So that's a discipline. It sounds so simple, but it's a day-to-day discipline of each time you want to say, yeah, I know what it means. No, you don't know. And if you know, nobody's interested actually in what you know. What's important is what they need. So we were going back.
This is so important, because people often ask us, can we define what the values mean on the values assessment? And
No.
we say, no, no. We want to ask you afterwards, what does it mean to you? And
Exactly.
it's really important that we don't try to think that we know the answer to these things.
Yes.
We have to know the questions, not the answers.
Yes, yeah.
So let's go. I'm more curious about time and see if we have possibility to come back. Umberto in Brazil, I would like, please, to know a little more about the shareholder program for collaborators. And I really don't know exactly what specifically, because you said that is something that they now have everyone, or not everyone, but the 29,000, was it?
They have more than 20,000 shareholders in Russia, yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
that means that they are then having a share.
Yes,
they are able to buy their own share in the company.
Yes, and they do actually, it's transformed in it's a scheme which is based on bonus, and the top bonus, which is transformed in shares.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that in other countries as well. So I don't know if it answers the question.
No, but I would suggest that Umberto actually asks if he has a very specific question regarding that, he come back to you.
Okay, so Christine, on that journey and the growth of the company, how did you engage the one that are coming later from the formulation of the values? So people who came into the organization after the values have been formulated, how did you bring them into the process?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go.
Continue. Now, the recruitment process has been adapted to reflect the work done. So there was already a first step, which was shared with the newcomers about what are the key foundations of the values of Laura Merlin. Following that, there were a number of workshops, and the beauty, of course, was that the project was continuing, and these people were involved. So they had an initial level of information and sharing, and then they had to put it in practice. And obviously, there was a bit less turnover at the higher level leaders in the company, who had a responsibility for leading, for sharing, for observing, for adapting the way the evaluation of the work was done.
And if I can add something, actually as the whole spirit of the project is co-authoring, they run regularly a workshop that we have created together with a team, which is called House of Creativity. And they run regularly that type of workshop, which is actually today even more powerful because we use Phygital tools. So we are in a room and we ask people, what do we do for that? What could be good? And they use both their smartphone in a room, so we can collect data. So they are regular workshop for the culture, saying where we are today, are we good? What should we change? So it's an ongoing process made possible with Phygital tools.
I'm jumping a little bit, trying to capture questions that are related, and this is from Elizabeth. The scope of the work is massive, which is clear. Many people. How many were you working in the core team? Was it just the two of you? And I think that was answered.
So
but I'd like to add a twist to that, because you also said that there are about 300 to 400 ambassadors.
Yes.
And I think those are part of the core team to support this process.
Yes, actually that was made possible because our role was to do supervision. We prepared the team so they could take ownership on the tools. And we did supervision. For example, we attended sometimes workshop to give feedback on facilitation. Maybe at that moment you should ask the question like that. Have you thought about doing that? So we did a lot of supervision, but the key idea was to enable autonomy. So so they could do it by themselves, and they became a great ambassador of that.
And in the process of allowing them to take over, cascade the effort, we were supervising. Isabel said that. We were supervising some teams. And what was fantastic is to see a cash attendant suddenly becoming responsible for passing the information.
Facilitating a workshop. And some of them did so well. And it was so rewarding to them because they were under pressure. They were willing to do it well. They had the view that they were not capable of doing it. And they were. And so we got personalities coming out of the teams from places that nobody paid attention before. And we implemented a very simple tool. For example, if there was a wave of workshops within the organization, we had a video conference with all the facilitators, and they could prepare questions, and we would say, have you thought about that? Can you try to do it this way? And actually for them, somehow it was reassuring to have a supervision, which enabled them, to gain in self-confidence. And we had people we had logistician, cash desk accountant who actually became facilitators of workshop, and they love it.
There are two things that speaks out that comes across very clearly here, and that is one, the trust in the wisdom of the crowd,
Yes.
the answers in ourselves, and the other one is the trust in our ability to grow into roles that we didn't think or didn't believe that we were able to do.
Yes.
And where do you think that comes from? I understand that comes from your believing as a consultant, but how was it with the leadership in the organization?
You mean the leadership, the top?
Yes.
Actually,
if they don't believe it, it's going to be very difficult for you to
Yes.
do that. But how was that?
Well, two key players in that is Vincent, the CEO of the company, and Vera Boyarkova, the HR director of the company, who are deeply convinced that they have to transmit something, to give something to others so they can do it by themselves. They do not have any authoritarian drivers. They have a lot of empathy, and they believe that people can do it if they are given the right tool and the right accompaniment as well. So I think it was a nice mixture of a lot of things.
And what we've experienced as well is the power of the crowd, of the voice of the crowd. It's really powerful. When you get 30,000 people telling you something, if you're a top leader in a company, it has a real weight. It has a real weight, I'm telling you.
I'm going to move us on to our next question because we've still got some to go. And Dharmesh and Tom have asked similar questions. So I'm going to start with Tom's and see if Dharmesh, if you've got anything else you want to add. Over the 3 CVA measurements, what shift did you see? And Tom's asking, did you see a shift from foundational me values to more we values? And what was the shift in entropy as well?
Yeah, good.
So historically, the entropy at the beginning was not very, very high. And today, the last CVA, it was 8%. It has to be taken with precaution, entropy, in a Russian context, because the relationship to power, to the verticality of power is very different than what it is in other countries. But the big shift was the shift from, look guys, if you want to develop a sustainable company, you have to care about us. So it was I want, I need recognition. I need you to help me looking after my health. I need good working condition. I would say that we shifted from working condition improvement towards contribution to a bigger scope.
Right.
And
personal development.
And meanwhile, in 6 years, a lot of things have been addressed. But yes, the big shift is improvement of working condition towards our contribution to the society.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have to round off here.
You're going to call time. I think so.
Yeah.
We have a few more questions, but what we'll do is we'll write those questions to you, Jean and Isabel, and if you can provide us with some written answers, then we can share that with the group. We'll be very grateful.
With great pleasure. Great pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, that was fantastic session, really. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
We agree completely with that.
Yeah.
And
Thank
give
you.
it back to you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I don't know anything else. There are a lot of people who have written in the chat box a great presentation, very good insight. Thank you very, very much. Very inspiring. I'm just reading out some of the things that are coming in. We will also share the chat conversation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
If you have any more if anybody has any more appreciations, you can type them in now. That's lovely to see those things, and that gives
fantastic.
Isabel
Thank
and Jean.
you. Yeah, great sharing.
Well, thanks for your interest as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
And with that, I think, a big thank you to everyone for coming, for you to sharing, and for being who you are.
Yeah.